here know the routine, so if a citizen, has anyone signed in?
Yes, ma'am. Linda Paquette.
Okay, come on up.
Yeah, I didn't sign in, Stephen signed me in.
Oh, okay.
I'd never like to sign in and be the first one, but if I'm the only one.
Okay, we need,
Linda Paquette, outside city limits, I'm also a PACAP commissioner. So I apologize for not having a laydown. I got bogged down trying to find some of the old materials that had been developed when you first did the interim search. But I think they were the same materials that were used when the current city manager was looking, but I couldn't find them in legislative districts. So there had been some descriptive language, I think, about the type of person that you were looking for back then. And there isn't anything in the recruitment, in that lovely recruitment document about the type of person, right? I mean, you've got the requirements of a bachelor's and all those things, and we can list all the things the city has, but I thought that there had been some language that kind of read like this, that the ideal candidate will be honest, trustworthy, transparent, a good communicator, someone interested in building bridges rather than walls, holding an open door policy, and being accepting of all regardless of age, gender, preference, or ethnicity. I think understanding the dynamic of our area, that we have people who live outside the city, who work inside the city, and how they all kind of consider that Seward is their home regardless of the lines on a map. There's also lots of business owners that have businesses in the city that live outside the city, and they have to have a way to have a voice because they can't vote, so they need to have, there needs to be an open door there. So I don't recall the language, but this is a very dynamic community, and I think we need to make it clear that all are welcome by the city administration, that all are welcome, and that we don't let politics divide us. We have a really LGBT, I have to leave because there's that meeting tonight. Many of us cherish those people. I know that there's a faction in town that, they use their religion as some kind of way of, like a method of hatred, but we can't invite that in. And I see that you're advertising and are planning to advertise in places like Montana and Idaho. And, I think in that brochure, you need to have a way to weed people out that are really not open to a diverse and dynamic community. We need to make sure we're not going backwards, as so many other places seem to be slipping into some sort of archaic, hateful place, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I need to ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time? I see none. So we'll move to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I need a motion and a second, please.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda, DeMoss,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and you have no items on consent.
Okay, thank you. Well, the only item of business we have is to, I'll read it. Review and approve the position announcement, job description, and salary range, proposed advertising plan, and draft recruitment materials for the city's effort to hire a new permanent city manager. And we've been given in our packet the proposed draft documents, and my thought is we'll go through each and make suggestions and end up with something pretty good at the end. So I'll turn it over to administration. Either Tammy, well, Madam City Manager, do you have anything?
I think unless HR has anything to add, I think at this point in time, I'll defer to you and you ask, go through and ask the questions and then we can respond.
Okay, okay. I didn't know if I was going to be leading us through this or if Tammy was, but sure. So then why don't we, my thought is just to go in order of what's in our packet. And Tammy has prepared on page 2 a list of items that we should discuss, and it starts with, on page 3, the job description and salary range. And I hope you've all read through this. And if not, as we go through it, if you've got questions, you can, we were still in the meeting mode, so you need to raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you and then like that. So does anyone have anything right off the top here? Councilmember Wells.
Yes, thank you. So to administration, I know that we have a lot of projects currently in the works, and I'm wondering, I read the job description earlier and then I just read through it again, and it doesn't talk in there about taking over the current position. I mean, I know that it's implied, right? But will we have outlined our current projects, our current goals towards funding and grants and that type of stuff for the new person?
You mean as it like an onboarding process or for the applicant to know what's going on?
Well, I guess for the applicant to know what's going on.
Okay.
I'm just curious if that's normal, or, because I mean, we have so much going on that if a person wants to apply for the job but then realizes, oh, well, I don't want to work on that project, or I don't want to be a part of that. I'm just curious if that's normal or not. I don't know.
That's a really good suggestion, and I personally don't recall how it went before, but that's really important to me. And would that be, I guess that would be in this job description.
I think
to carry on, but they need to know some of the items, maybe the top 3 or something like that. How does everybody else feel? Just I'll get nods. Councilmember DeMoss.
I like that idea. Would including our legislative priorities be a good idea, or would that, help get to the point on that?
I agree with
Councilmember Finch.
They should have an idea what's going on with the heat loop, the Coast Guard, all that, our tunnel system that's being built.
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. So maybe if we add a bullet point, and I don't know how to put this together, but if we add a bullet point that then outlines our current goals, I think that would help a person who was new to the community to go, oh wow, look at all this stuff that they are working on. I do want this job, or vice versa, right? That's more work than I want to deal with.
I'll get Vice Mayor.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's another place for this. Like, this is informative. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the job description because this isn't always going to be occurring. So I'm just wondering if this could be just another piece that's informative to all the applicants saying, here's what we're doing. We would just supply it as a supplement to this. Or to the application that they're trying to fill out.
I'm seeing some nods for that. Madam City Manager had something first, and then.
That was my thought as well, is rather than put it in the job description, have it be part of the packet, the application packet.
Okay. And was that what you
And that was
suggested?
my thought as well, or even in the brochure that we have, we can really
Yeah, we'll be getting
fill
to
that
the
full
brochure.
of projects.
Okay, so maybe we'll discuss that more when we get to the brochure. Good idea. That's, I'm seeing,
Just a thought,
Okay.
as a suggestion to you,
So-
Madam Mayor, perhaps those specific projects could be incorporated into the questions that you ask the applicants during the interview process as well. And that's, I guess, just observing other city manager recruitment processes. That's typically something that comes out during the specific
Yeah.
interviews as well, to discuss those projects that are underway with the applicants.
Councilmember Wells.
I think that's a great idea, Stephen. And I do like the idea of putting it in the brochure. And if we put it in the brochure and we have an applicant, well, I would expect, right?
I would have read it.
That they would have read it and maybe done a little research on it before the interview process. So, yeah, I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so, as we look through just pages 3, 4, and 5, You know, some of it's just stuff that should be there. Some of it's stuff I don't understand, whatever I see as 100, 200 and all that is, but it's obviously important. Tammy, could you tell me
Sure,
what that
that's
is?
the incident command system classes that all of our employees have to take.
Okay, they would know this? Maybe, maybe not.
They should know this.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, so I didn't find any issues. This looks very professional and I don't know. How about everybody else? I would think perhaps if, you know, I'm one that looks for typos and I didn't really scan this too carefully, but that would be carefully scanned, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Councilmember Wells?
Yeah. So I know everybody thought I was joking earlier, but I do find it, I don't know, comical, if you will, necessary special requirements. After having a bachelor's degree and all these other requirements, you have to have a valid driver's license. And I'm wondering, does the city manager, they're not required to drive for the city.
But they do,
They're not
Maybe.
they're not required to drive for the city. They could, you know, they could have a chauffeur. They could they could not be capable of driving, but still capable of being a city manager.
I wonder if we've had any applicants ever that didn't, though. I don't know, or is that could I ask, is that something that's just a standard
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is an
requirement?
absolute standard on all of our job
Okay. So-
descriptions that they have to
I
have
would think
valid.
if someone had a handicap or something that didn't allow them to drive, that would be taken into account, I would hope, right?
Yes, it would be.
Councilmember Finch?
Yeah, I believe what Councilman Wells was talking about, a lot of that's covered under the physical demand description.
Oh, okay.
As far as work performance, office setting, extreme heat, cold weather, exposure, that means they're gonna be in and outside. And apparently they have to have good vision and hand-eye coordination, so they should have a driver's license.
Councilmember Wells?
Okay? So are we, by that standard, Councilmember Finch, are we implying that a person in a wheelchair that cannot drive a vehicle doesn't have the qualities or the abilities to be a city manager?
Councilmember Finch?
Not implying at all, I know plenty of people that, in wheelchairs that drive themselves. They have the custom vehicles for that.
No, it's okay.
Madam City Manager?
I would just say that, keep in mind too, the council has the ability to, through the process, to waive certain
Sure.
items as well, so.
I don't think we'd embarrass anyone. Councilmember Barnwell?
It might not be the driving that they're really alluding to, it might be if you have a valid driver's license, it's the first step towards passing the background check.
There is that.
Okay.
Okay, so we good with that? Okay. It's good to, I mean, everyone sees different things, and this is why we're doing this. So, anything else within this pages 3, 4, 5? We can come back to it if somebody suddenly has a explosive idea. Okay, so then let's move to page 6, the recruitment notice and advertising plan. So page 6 is the recruitment notice that's being presented to us. And yes, Councilmember Demas.
Can I ask City Manager Bauer what she thinks about the salary that we are offering?
Madam Mayor, I believe it is within the range that I see at other municipalities at this time.
So it's valid, thank you. May I ask, if I were a potential city manager reading this and it says exempt, would I know what that means? I mean, I know what that means, but, you know, does everybody know what that means? Well, there, for example, Councilmember Demas doesn't know, but she wants to be city manager. What does exempt mean, or could we put other words that would make that more clear?
Yeah, we could, that usually means that they are exempt from overtime. So
Well,
I can find a different way to word that if you would like.
Maybe, I don't know if there's or maybe that's not necessary as a, I don't know, that's okay. Councilmember Wells?
I didn't even notice that, and so learn something new every day. But I thought that the term salary meant that they were exempt from overtime.
All right.
So,
Okay. I mean, maybe everyone knows that. Vice Mayor?
I would think that salary doesn't necessarily mean you're exempt from overtime. I think there's certain agreements where you can actually get overtime
Okay.
after a certain number of hours if you work more than,
So,
even though it's salary. So I think that's why there's a separate exempt.
so maybe a clarification of that might be, does, do you, others feel that? Yes,
I
Vice Mayor.
would think that people that are in this kind of industry should probably know this, what this means, I
that's
would
what
think, because it's, but I don't know.
Okay, Madam City Manager.
I do believe that. I think maybe just adding exempt position, maybe just another word. Further clarify, it'd be fun. I do think that most of them would understand that, but we could, the HR manager could add a couple words to that just to clarify further.
Is that okay with everyone? I mean, I don't know, I just want to be, yeah. This is pretty standard, I think, and if we're all okay with the salary range and all that, and depending on experience, obviously, and if we'd like them, just kidding. Okay, so, let's look at page 7, the advertising plan. Maybe, should I read some of this out for people watching perhaps? I don't, do you want me to? And then we can all go through it. So it's listed free sites, notice posted until removed, the city website, city Facebook, My Alaska job site, AML, ICMA, governmentjobs.com. That covers quite a bit. Councilmember Tomas.
What about, and maybe this is a totally different industry, but maybe what about like Indeed and, have you guys heard of those? I know a lot of like seasonal people use Indeed to come up here. I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's the same. It's not free? Oh, thank you.
So this was just listing potential free sites, I guess. And then the Journal, which also goes online on Wednesday mornings. And we would need a quote from them price-wise, that's what it means by that, and to run the ad in the Journal until it's requested to be removed by HR, and don't forget to request that because it will run forever. Councilmember Wells.
So, not that I don't appreciate the Seward Journal, but I have a pretty good idea on how much those ads cost. And in my opinion, the Seward Journal's for Seward. Everybody around here knows that we are looking for a city manager. I believe that, and it's not an inexpensive ad, especially for the size of the paper. I would think that if we were going to advertise in a paper, we would want to advertise in a paper. I mean, I don't want to say ADN, but you know what I mean? But someplace with a larger pool of applicants, because every possible applicant that's in our area, in my opinion, is either going to know from social media, for the fact that there's a job, you know, from our own local postings. That's just my opinion.
I'm seeing some nods. Anybody, Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I think there are people in this community that might have friends in other communities that have no idea. That might say, hey, there's an opening here for city manager. And it's actually a courtesy of the Seward Journal also that we, in my opinion, might owe them to use their services for this.
Councilmember Wells.
Yes. So I agree with friends outside of the, friends of people who live in our community that are outside the community. But Alaska is a Facebook, so if they have friends outside the community, they're friends on Facebook. Does that make sense? No? You don't have a Facebook account?
I do, and I've stopped using it.
Oh, well.
So-
Okay. So,
Each their own.
I'm sorry, I
I'll
didn't
get that.
go back and forth, but may I continue?
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead.
So, as far as, I just, investing the money, I just felt like there was maybe, if we're gonna pay for advertising, there might be a larger pool to advertise to. But I appreciate what you're saying, for sure.
Just come this way. Councilmember DeMoss.
Could we ask the chamber to help us with marketing for it. Maybe?
Tammy, what do you,
Yes, I can apply, I can put our jobs on their site as well.
Mm-hmm.
that would cover a lot, actually. Okay. Councilmember Finch.
As far as the newspaper, my suggestion would be that I know the two biggest ones are the Anchorage Daily News and the Fairbanks Daily Miner. That floats all over the state.
So what do we think? Should we do a newspaper? I guess the question, well, before I ask that question, Vice Mayor Osing.
Well, I was just gonna make the suggestion that we should probably do our local paper out of courtesy, but then I think we should do ADN, just to get that wider coverage. Because it's also an e-newspaper, so, I think that would probably be the wise thing to do.
Well, we're getting a lot of free advertising, so, you know, what do we think? I guess thing one, maybe we'll vote on. Yes, Councilmember Calhoun.
Madam Mayor, I think maybe we can wait and see what the quote is,
What the what?
what the quote is
Oh,
that we've asked for
Mm-hmm.
before we do anything with that.
You're not
You
gonna
know-
have another meeting. You're not gonna have another meeting to approve a quote.
So, okay, I don't know, my experience in the last numbers of years, if you look at newspapers, classified ads, there's not really a heck of a lot going on there. People don't really pay attention to that much anymore. And this is not a knock on Sewer Journal or ADN or any of them. I just don't know that that's really an effective way. Because if there's somebody in this profession that's looking for a position, they're gonna look at AML, they're gonna look at ICMA, they're gonna look at, you know, the City of Seward's website, Facebook. If they have friends that live in Seward, those friends that live in Seward are gonna let them know that there's a job open in Seward for a city manager if they know those people are interested in that kind of thing. I'm just not sure that that's gonna be an effective use of funds, even though we're not talking thousands of dollars, I understand that, but I just don't know how effective newspaper classifieds are with that.
I have a question. Does anyone know if GovHR would be, or did they before, advertise in the Sewer Journal? I don't think they did.
From what I remember, I believe the ad was placed, but it was just like a tiny ad like I do for our regular job announcements. They're real short, to the point, this is just what we need. So it'd be more like this ad.
Right.
We can make it real short.
So, a thought is, it would be listed on our regular city job placement.
Yes, ma'am.
Open jobs anyway. So if anybody looks at that, it would probably be right up there at the top.
Correct.
So that's part of what we already do. That's just a thought to throw out there. Councilmember Wells.
Well, as far as print advertising goes, Councilmember Calhoun is correct. I don't know what the last time was that I looked. I mean, I read the Sewer Journal, but I don't think I ever look at the classified ads. However, if we set up an ad that is more like a half-page, like part of this brochure type of thing, now we're marketing. You know, we're not back in the classified section, we're actually marketing. And instead of doing it every week, right, if we were to do something like that every other week in some print form, it would have a whole lot more of effect because so many more people would flip through it and go, you know, it'd be bam, it'd be right there. Instead of us thinking that people go to the ads in the back of the paper look job hunting. I mean, that was 1985, if I remember correctly.
Other comments? Councilmember Barnwell.
I think, I would like to ask Jeanette what she thinks, because she's in the field and she's marketed herself and.
Madam City Manager.
I think that someone who is already a city manager, the most reach is actually the ICMA. That's going to be the most reach. And I don't want to disparage any newspaper, but I don't think there's really going to be much of an effect of that. I think as Tammy's advertising now, she could add that small, or so to speak, for the city manager referring back to the website in the paper, but the most reach is going to really actually be the free sites and then LinkedIn. So I just don't think newspaper print is really going to reach very much.
I think I agree with that at this point, yeah. I don't know, unless anybody's strongly opposed. Councilmember Calhoun.
I guess, yeah, my question on that would be, of all the jobs that we've advertised, that way, that we see week after week after week after week, how many of those jobs have we filled because the person saw that?
We could ask HR. I don't know if you could tell that, though.
Yeah,
Really.
Just when people drop off their applications to me, that they saw it on our website, or
Yeah.
they were referred, or they saw it in the paper, it's not,
So
I
it
do
is
not
not.
have an accurate count on how I get them or how they see them.
So is there a consensus here to just put it in the regular job listings in the journal? I'm seeing nods. Yeah. Okay. So then, the next thing on the list of advertising plan was LinkedIn, and they advertise free for 30 days, which is pretty much our plan for advertising anyway, and I think I don't really, well, yeah. So I think that's a good, it's a good thing. Any problems with LinkedIn or, okay. And then there are some additional options that she has provided if we wanted to advertise through these other sites such as monster.com, ziprecruiter.com, and then there were listed several city manager associations throughout the Northwest. Do any of those, does anyone want to use those, or, yeah, Councilmember Finn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for about, I see it's Washington, Idaho, Montana, Colorado, Oregon. So is there no Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska organization? Since we're in the Midwest, we're kind of like leaving out the heart of it.
These were the recommendations that GovHR was presenting, so
Oh.
I was following
So they kind of
suit
know
for other
maybe.
ideas.
Every state would have an association, so you could
But I was
just
just
keep going.
doing it, it's like demographics is kind of off.
Could, Madam City Manager.
And the ICMA also goes through those organizations,
Oh, that was
all
gonna
through the
be-
United States. So I think ICMA would actually reach all of those associations.
Okay.
So I think it might be difficult to contact every single association when ICMA can already do that.
So I think that rolls it back to monster.com or ZipRecruiter, unless, Councilmember Wells.
HR, are the ones under additional options, are those pay sites?
The Monster and the ZipRecruiter,
They are.
those will be paid.
But the
sites.
City Manager
Indeed.
Association throughout the Northwest, those aren't pay, those are free?
Through ICMA.
They would be free, especially through the ICMA, because
Okay.
we're free
But
to
they
them.
would be doing it anyway, it sounds like. Councilmember Wells.
Do we have any, of course, we've all seen the commercials for Monster and ZipRecruiter, more ZipRecruiter currently than Monster, but do you have any documentation from either one of those sites that talks about finding government employees, or?
I do not, these were just other options. If you
Okay.
guys were interested, that I'd be happy to research.
I'd be interested in seeing what the ZipRecruiter has to say for sure.
Okay.
Do you want to add the Indeed.com to that list?
Oh, yeah, maybe it was Indeed.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Okay. So we're asking HR to see what's available and the cost, is that what you're saying? Vice Mayor Rosen.
I was just gonna ask about the meeting, I mean, we're gonna have another meeting? I mean,
Well, that's the problem,
So-
because.
we can ask to look at stuff, but what are we gonna do?
Right. I think we need to make decisions.
Yeah.
Personally, I think we need to get on with it and make the decisions tonight. Councilmember Wells, and then I'll get you.
Sorry. Do you have an idea on how much, for example, the ZipRecruiter is? Or before we close out this meeting, can somebody Google that and see what the cost is before we make that decision? Because I
can
know that
just
it's
set
not
that-
inexpensive.
We can set that aside and just come back to it. Somebody remind me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we okay with this then, and we'll roll back? Okay, so let's look at the next page, which is page 8, and it's listed as application materials and procedures. And there's some additional options in here too. Okay, so in application materials and procedures, it says required the city application form, a resume, and references, both professional and personal. That sounds normal. And then there's an option to require a writing sample or an essay about an accomplishment that they have that describes, I'll read this, a challenge, obstacle the applicant faced and how they overcame it to be successful, or anything else that you can think of. Personally, I don't think it would hurt to see a writing sample, but I'm not sure that defines a good city manager or not. It would be an interesting thing. I mean, the application form, the resume, and references, that's the starting point, you know.
So, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Osenga.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Would this be where you'd want to maybe find out, instead of a challenge or an obstacle, maybe you'd want to find out about what they think their ideal, if they'd be able, you know, like if we would fit in their future. So I don't exactly know how to word it, but you know what I mean? If this is actually, they're applying for this, is this something that would fit them, or they would fit, you know what?
Yeah, so I could see an essay, how, you know, in so many words, how do you feel you would fit in as city manager in a place like Seward, Alaska? I would say in a place like, because it's unlike other places. That would be a good way of screening what some of us have been suggesting. I don't know. Councilmember Finch.
Like, how would you incorporate yourself in Seward and lifestyle?
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah, just
Councilmember
to add to that, like acknowledging maybe somehow we need to get them to understand or acknowledge, or do they have an understanding of what they're getting into here?
I know, but you can't really say that.
That's a long winter.
Yeah, use words like unique.
Yeah.
Councilmember.
Yes, thank you. I think, so I actually, whenever somebody applies for a job with me, I ask this very simple question about, you know, a time where you had to overcome diversity or issues, but that seems like that's more during the application process, not just for submitting their application. I mean, do we really want them to write an essay about why they want to move to Seward before we even start the interview process?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I really think, you know, I hadn't thought this before, but that would screen out some people. I mean, they'd have to actually think about it. Yeah, I mean, some people just, I know people who just apply to things because they like to practice applying. But if they have to actually sit down and write something thoughtfully, that might help the process. I don't know, it's just, I hadn't really thought of that until just now, so we're all just kind of exploring. Let me get Councilmember Barnwell and then.
Yeah, I think we really are extremely unique, you know, and I think that I would agree that if they really need to do due diligence, this isn't St. Louis, you know, Missouri, or it's just a really different thing, and to see how they tackle that might be really interesting and give us some insight on how they might have they done their due diligence to really look at this place.
Councilmember Finch, you still?
I was thinking something of writing sample, how they would incorporate themselves in the Seward's unique area and lifestyle.
Something like that.
Because I agree with Councilmember Wells, that question should be asked sitting right there.
Yeah. and
Because
we
it makes them, puts them on the spot. If they've had any experience, they're going to draw on that.
What do you think? Writing sample? I mean, that question or a similar question? I'm seeing lots of nods. Anyone opposed? Councilmember Wells?
I'm not opposed at all. Do we, at this point, say what that essay should be about?
Yeah.
Do we do that right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
So
I
something
think that,
like.
no, now that you said it out loud, I agree. I think that's a
Similar
great
to
idea.
what Councilmember Finch just said. We could tweak it if you want, but Yes, Councilmember Wells.
And I also, though, if we put in our current projects in the brochure and then ask them to talk about that as well? Or is that too much?
That's pushing. No, I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, I just.
Interview, okay.
Madam City Manager.
I have seen where there's an initial, maybe writing sample, and then the candidates are screened, and then an email has been sent to do additional writing
Yeah, I
sample.
think,
So it comes after that first screening, that additional. So that might be the time for that.
Okay.
Like it?
I'm just harking back to, I used to be one of the scientists at Cal Poly that was chosen to several times a year read the writing essays. At Cal Poly, to graduate, you had to pass an essay, and it was like a directed essay. And we would read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of essays, and I just flashed on how many applicants are going to apply and how many essays, but it's not going to be that many. Councilmember.
I just think we have to be careful because they could be a really good city manager without the writing skills. You know, so we do
That's
have to
true,
kind of
too.
take that into account.
Well,
I'm very biased because that's my degree. So I'm biased towards writing. I think they can be a really good manager without having writing skills. So we just have to be careful.
well, that's a novel thing.
Yeah.
Councilmember Calhoun.
You know, to that though, I think that before we ever get it, whatever they've written is probably going to get screened 3 or 4 times by people they know before it
Oh,
ever
yeah.
gets to us anyway. So I don't think that's going to be the best indicator by the time it gets here of whether they can write or not.
Yeah.
There's new apps that can write for you.
Councilmember Wells.
Yeah, and I agree with Councilmember Calhoun, but definitely does show that they're putting in a little bit more effort than just filling in the blanks. So I think we should definitely come up with a question for them.
Okay, Councilmember Wells. I mean Finch, sorry, I've said it.
Because what I just written here, and the reason that I'm writing it this way is if they're unsure, they would go online and look at sewer, contact, learn things. But, you know, how would they incorporate themselves into the Seward area, lifestyle, and unique demographics of Seward? Explain that to me. That shows me either you have a history of this area type background, you understand the cold and the mountains and the fishing and the hunting. And if they can't, they can at least research and go, no, I don't want to do that.
I like that. How about, shall we go with that?
Can you repeat it, please? I just want to get
I
that
didn't
down.
write it down.
How will you incorporate yourself into the Seward area, lifestyle, and unique demographics of Seward?
Okay. Okay, and then,
You might want to put a word limit on that.
say that again? Oh, a word limit. 500 words? Ish? Or less? Up to? Okay. Yeah, I'd be reading all, that's where I'm having flashbacks right now. Okay, and then there was options on this page. Other question mark, are there other things or just let it be those 4 things? Okay. Yes, Councilmember Wells.
Sorry, under the application procedures, there's a question.
Oh, I haven't gotten
does-
there yet.
Well, I thought we were getting ready to
Yeah,
flip the page.
yeah.
Yeah. So it says, does council wish to view all applicants received regardless of
Oh, right.
completeness? Or does the council want HR to vet the apps? My suggestion would be that HR only sends us the apps with essays. Because in my opinion, if they're gonna take the time to write an essay, their application's gonna be complete.
Well, if it's a requirement, for sure, yeah. Vice Mayor Osenka.
I would argue, I mean, I would just suggest that we just get completed applications.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. I just completed.
Yeah, and that is part of the completion. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, so, but, I mean, when we had, when we had GovHR, they would screen a whole bunch of them before we would get them, I think, and we still got a whole bunch. So the question is really, do we want to see all I think that regardless of completeness, I think we want complete
Mhm.
applications. Is that, okay, that's pretty much, we want only complete
Only complete.
applications. Do we want to see the whole batch? Councilmember DeMoss?
If we're only accepting complete applications, will you let applicants know if they haven't turned in a complete
Oh,
application?
that's a good thing.
And I absolutely can. I
Okay.
can let them know if a certain piece is missing,
Yeah. that'd be
give them a
great.
chance to
Yeah.
By the deadline.
to turn that in by the deadline, yes,
Thank you.
And the
absolutely.
deadline's absolute. Councilmember Wells?
I recommend, I would like to see every application, especially if we're gonna have a 500-word essay. I would like to read every one of those essays. I don't think we're gonna have 100 applicants, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Would we be receiving these in a packet, or would these be, I mean, would it be at a meeting we would be having? I guess this would have to be at a meeting. I mean, we want to be transparent. Is it normal to see all the applications publicly? But yes.
If it
Madam City
helps,
Clerk.
I did at the last minute, I went back in legislative history and I found from 2018. That was the last process and Ms. Paquette mentioned it. The last time council was responsible for doing the hiring. So the way it was approached at that time was specifically for an interim because if you recall, it was a quick turnaround. The notice was posted in Seward Journal for 2 weeks. It was only 2 weeks, not 30 days like you're doing this time. It went into ADN one time. It went online to all those sites that that Tammy listed on the free sites. And council set a 2-week deadline. They set a work session ahead of time to review to do the public interviews. Council was provided all the materials that were submitted by the candidates.
That's right.
There was no vetting, pre-vetting. You saw everything, and you followed the interview session. You had 7 applicants, by the way, for that. And then you followed with the special meeting to confer on the applicants. You can go into executive session and discuss the particulars. So if that helps, and then they, they scored and made an offer.
Right.
So it went pretty fast last
It
time.
did. I would. So, okay, so the question here is, do we want to view all of the applications? Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes, I think. Madam City Manager?
I guess process-wise, how do you want to receive them? So what I'm seeing often in the process is that actually the applicants are not, all of them are not made public until the council goes to interview them. That seems to be what I'm seeing from the other municipalities, including Saldana. And so the council, what I understand, saw all applications. So when one was received, they were emailed the application, so that council saw all applications. At some time in the process, and I don't really know, and maybe Tammy knows, but at some time in the process, they either met or they had designated from their council to then go through them and vet and bring those names to council to move forward in the process. So I think, it's more of the, this also is requesting, what are you going to do? You'll receive them all, but now what?
Okay, did you have anything to add to that, Terry?
I know that as well, that HR had gone through all of those and then they vetted them to make sure that they met the requirements and then gave all those applications to the council. And then for them, they did executive session and they all reviewed the applications. That's how they worked it.
Okay, Councilmember Finn.
I like the idea of them as they come in being emailed to us, that way we can review them, but we have the ability to have a couple days to think about something they said instead of a mass decision, and we can make notes on our own and then discuss it together.
The discussion would be public.
Correct, yes.
until you got into the
No.
particulars.
Yeah, until you get
done public scoring of applications.
We did the public
and
scoring,
interviews. Yeah.
because we had the board, I remember up there, and it was like, Dave Squires was mayor, and he was, how many did number so-and-so, we did that.
But if you're going to speak to like results of a reference check or a
Right.
background check, that would be done in executive session.
Right.
Yeah.
Councilmember Barnwell.
I would rather narrow it down to the, say, 3 candidates, rather than putting all those people out there for public review. I don't think it's fair to them, and
It's a fine line. Yeah, it was interesting that some of them were people we knew at that time too. They were within Alaska, so it was, you can think, well, you've got this whole list of unknown names and whatever, but there were people that people knew, I knew. And so but that was all public. I'm not sure the applications were though. It was, I don't remember those being in the packet. Maybe the resume.
It was for an interim position, so
Yeah.
it was not a permanent hire
Maybe that's
position,
the
and
thing.
maybe that made a difference,
Councilmember Wells.
I think that if HR emails, or if the clerk emails us the applications as they come in, we don't need to speak to each other about it, but then we could have a meeting and say, these were the names that I suggested, these are, right? Is that what we're
yeah.
thinking about?
that's-
That
I
way it's
think
not
that's-
every single,
Right.
and then we can agree to narrow it down to however many we actually want to interview.
Once we get the top ones, then that would be public. All that information. Councilmember Tomas.
Well, I think that we should see how many applications we get first. So just during the 30-day period, we get the applications, we have our own time to read them and think about it, and then we come together for a work session or a special meeting to discuss our top picks, correct? And it'll depend on how many, I guess, I don't know.
So one of the options listed here is, or one of the questions, the last one, what will determine council's readiness to hold a meeting to review applications? Wait until the end of the 30 days or meet after a certain number of applications? Well, what do you think? Councilmember DeLuise.
Well, I think that when you put 30 days, we should just wait for the 30 days.
That would be my recommendation. I'm
People
seeing
think they have 30 days.
a lot of nods. Councilmember Wells.
So under the other notes, again, it says, the application materials will be furnished to council in a public meeting. But are we gonna agree that the applications will come to us for our review before the public meeting?
I would
That's
certainly
just
like that.
that's something you have to decide tonight. Yeah.
It's our
Which
option
approach.
to
Yeah.
decide that.
Yeah.
I'd like more time personally. And I think that's what we're kind of saying. Councilmember Wells.
So I'd like to make a suggestion that we add in here that as completed applications are received, they're shared with each council member.
So upon receipt,
Yeah,
they'll have to be redacted.
right. The personal information like that. That was I was
Yeah.
going to make sure that's the case. We don't want to know social security and birthday and mother's maiden name, right?
And then if you want to say now that you want to wait 30 days, but then if you do get a good number of applications and you're feeling like you have enough to work with, you can just call a special meeting. The mayor alone can call a special meeting if, you're feeling like, well, we've got 6 applicants that, at least 4 look good, let's do it,
But
You
I
can call a meeting.
But weren't we just saying we want to give, if it's a 30-day, if somebody's not complete until day 30, that's only fair to.
Yeah.
We can't just cut it off. Well, that's my thought, I don't know.
I agree.
Otherwise, we would
It's your
be
choice.
saying, it's a 30-day application window, but if we get good ones, then it's only 3 days. Yeah. We've already decided the 30 days. We could have a shorter window than 30 days even, I suppose. Nothing's been put out there yet, so, is your hand up or are you
It is,
just
sorry.
waiting?
Yeah, sorry. I was just waiting.
Councilmember Wells.
Could we not say that we are going to advertise for 30 days and review at 15, review the number of applicants and possibly terminate the advertisement, or 15. But I think, I believe I can tell by looking at our current city manager's face that is if we say 30 days, it's 30 days.
It's 30 days, that's how I
So-
would read it, yeah.
And we could have a person who busted out an amazing essay and, waited to send it, maybe they're doing 25 days on the slope or something, who knows? So I think 30 days is 30 days.
Okay, Councilmember Finch.
Thank you. There's other things to think about too. Individual could have family emergency going on, they have surgeries going on, family deaths, and 2 week not be the time to
So
deal with it.
this
So I think
allows
the
for,
30-day window cut and dry, if you don't make it by then,
right, and that deadline would be posted, whatever that actual day is too, so that people know.
So
Okay.
just looking at the calendar,
Madam Clerk?
if HR, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
If HR was approved to start advertising, say, Monday, May 1st, and went through May 30th or 31st, since there's a holiday, you have, on June 12th, you have postponed resolution. And that would give you perhaps a week to hold your special meeting and decide
That
how
would work.
to proceed.
Right, and we'll discuss that special meeting, yeah. Thank you, that works. Okay, are we good with that part? Okay, then we're moving on, sample email for initial response, that looks fine to me unless anybody has issues, but there's one more really important thing, and Tammy,
I'm
yes.
sorry, if I can just get clarification back on. So as completed applications are received, I will be emailing those to the city clerk for her to send, I'm going to email them directly to you.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. They had mentioned the clerk emailing them out, so I wanted to have clarification that I was sending them. Okay,
If you can
thank
send them to us.
Okay, thank you.
Is that, did you have other
That's-
stuff?
that's it.
Oh,
That's all I have. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, the other thing, the sample email for initial response, to me, that looks good. Does anybody, this is on page 9. And then the big deal, the other last big deal, is the recruitment brochure. And I found a couple typos, but I can just hand them over. That wouldn't be a problem. They're just simple things. But this is revised from the previous one, I know, because it's, the wording is different, and so, yeah.
Yes.
So you did this. And there's, at the end of it, this is the thing I wanted to point out, the very, not quite end, where it says city manager, it would be page 3 if you count the pages. At the end, it says, "This is an outstanding and unique career opportunity for an experienced, well-rounded, and professional municipal manager. The city council is seeking candidates with," and this is where we could put in a few of our pet things that we want, right?
Correct, that was my intention to,
Okay.
whatever it is that you guys
I think that's the
want
last
to
thing
do.
we want to discuss tonight from
Yes.
looking at it. So, I know some of us have some things, and they're probably the similar things, so we could just go around and collect a list of things and then maybe narrow it down. And Councilmember Wells, you're ready.
I am. I think that that's a good point, a good spot right there. The city council is seeking candidates with a desire to help our community move forward on these projects, since they're already outlined.
And then list some of our current projects. Okay. Councilmember DeMoss.
Or do we want to have a separate section in here that says our current legislative priorities and projects? And then at the bottom, the city council is seeking candidates with, or our ideal candidate would have these qualities. Because maybe then
Yeah.
it's just like,
Right, 'cause
I don't
we-
know, then it's separate and they understand all the projects, because that's a whole thing.
We were talking about somewhere another major section of this, having our current ongoing projects and priorities, right?
That's what I would
Okay,
like.
so then at the, what you would be saying is, how would you word it? Just,
Well,
I don't remember how it started.
the city council is seeking candidates with a desire and the skills to aid our community with our,
Current projects and ongoing projects or something
Yeah.
like that. Okay.
something like
So
that.
we just-
Yeah. Councilmember DeVos?
I would like to see a city manager that has strong personnel skills and who is strong in communications.
Okay, I agree with that. Vice Mayor Osenga.
Can we, since we don't want to limit what we're looking for, can we try to just find broad terms that we're looking for to make this so that it's kind of all-inclusive? When we start listing it out, we could wind up with, we could have 20 pages of things that we want, but we're really looking for the, someone with, high energy, high drive and skills, and just make it so it's a broad description of, instead of trying to, break down the, go ahead.
What do you think? Councilmember Barnwell.
I agree with Vice Mayor. I do think, as Ms. Paquette said earlier, that it would be nice to somehow put in there that, and I don't know how to put it in there subtly, but it's not, I don't think this is a politically driven ideological town. It's a pragmatic, get it done, spirit of collaboration. And somehow I think we have to convey that so that we don't draw that kind of candidate that might have some sort of agenda that we don't really need here, in my opinion.
Councilmember DeVos.
We actually had that in the description last time, and I think we said something like, I don't know what the word was, but we did. We added it in the description last time.
Maybe we could find out.
Not partisan.
Okay, Councilmember Wells, go ahead, and then I'll head.
Okay. I was just going to ask administration, honestly, I believe that since you're running, you're our current city manager, you know even more than we do about what we need, right? So I would ask for some of your input on how we should complete this sentence.
So I think that Vice Mayor Osenga is right in broad terms, but also, so here's a little insider information when a city manager applies somewhere. You pretty much dissect the language, because then it's like, aha, this is where they're having issues, or this is what they want to improve, and do I have the skill set for that? And so it is good to have it broad, but also when you want something very, very specific, you probably should put that in too. Maybe go broad on some things that you're like, you should have no matter what things, but really hone in on what you absolutely want. So I know that kind of played to both sides, but truly that's what I look at, when I was coming here too. And then, you could hear the tone also too of the city in the brochure. It's a thing.
May I have a follow-up?
Okay, a follow-up.
A follow-up? So can you give us 3 terms, 3 broad terms for us to chew on, or think about it?
Broad, I can maybe come up with, but collaborative being one, and maybe a collaborative in communication, there might be one and the same, but collaborative communication, 3 broad.
Project management.
Yeah, project management.
Project management skills, or experience and skills.
I'll come up with a third one, but I can't get there right this second.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Kinch.
Some things that we're going to add would be strong leadership skills, neutral on any political issues, fair with staff, and consistent with their actions and interactions with the public.
That's all good.
Love it.
Were there other hands over here?
Can you say it again? Sorry, I just want to say it again.
Councilmember Wells.
Sorry, I was just, Councilmember Finch, would you repeat that for me one more time?
Strong leadership skills.
Yep.
Remains neutral on political issues. Keeping the city neutral. Fair and consistent with staff. And consistent interaction with public.
I like it.
Madam City Manager.
We were just talking in one thing that and this may not go to the broad part, so, but is legislative advocacy, because that is something that you desire.
Legislative what?
Advocacy.
I made you say that twice, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think that's really been really important to the council.
So experience with that,
Yes, I would say
or most of these would be, or ability to? Okay, we can put in the right words. How do you guys feel about something about knowledge or experience in Alaskan issues or lifestyles or something like that? Is that getting too specific? I know that we talked before about wanting somebody that's not, I mean, it's not the Great Alaska Adventure. They're here because they have something, some knowledge of how things go here. I'm not sure if that's what we want to put in or not. Councilmember Finch.
Uniqueness? Alaska's uniqueness.
Yeah,
Not lifestyle,
Like
not
we said
culture, just
before, but
uniqueness.
to reiterate that maybe. Councilmember Wells.
Under our community, I think is where we would outline the uniqueness of our environment and the harsh realities of the winter and that type of stuff, right? Because when they read our,
Yeah, so,
you can't really make that a job requirement.
no, that wasn't my, yeah.
I really do appreciate that transparency about, I mean, I know Alaska said that wasn't that, but for me, but that transparency about the winters, I mean, that's important. I told someone the other day, don't make a decision in Alaska winter, like Councilmember Barnwell said to me. But I do think it's a reality, and I think that's important to add. In Minnesota, my second, they put in there, must have thick skin. That told me right away they were having some issues, and I needed thick skin for the issues. So,
Well, we don't-
but yeah.
That was not my intent of that.
No, don't think that word, but, I mean, you could rephrase that one, but it was great that they were that forthright and honest with it. And you really did need it for there, but it's still cool.
Councilmember
You could
Barnwell.
put something like, doesn't require going out to eat every other night.
Well,
Don't
is there,
expect to go.
is there,
Don't
well,
expect it.
that brings up the question, was there something about, I don't think we really emphasized the lack of amenities, as you always call them here. I mean, we don't have a symphony, we don't have theater, we don't have a lot of restaurants in the winter, and it's cold. Can you deal with it? That's kind of what I'm trying to get to without saying that, but I'm not sure how to say that. Maybe we're seeking candidates that can adapt to Alaskan conditions. I mean, unique Alaskan conditions, something like that, maybe. Tammy?
Would that be including, the winters, how dark it is here, and then how light it is? A lot of people don't realize
Changing daylight,
how many hours we get of each.
unique Alaskan conditions.
Yeah.
I'll go over here for
I was just going to say the unique seasons.
Yeah, unique
Yeah.
seasons,
Unique
yeah.
seasons that allow.
Maybe within that same sentence, though.
Thank you.
Did you,
No.
okay. Councilmember Wells?
I do believe that as far as not being able to go out to eat and our unique winters, a lot of that is covered in the Seward Chamber of Commerce,
Oh, yeah.
right? So instead of putting it in, we don't want to, I don't want to, well, it's not, I mean, of course we want to be honest and upfront, and we want our applicants to be honest with themselves, right? Because that's really what we're asking them, is to be 100% honest with themselves before they even
Oh,
apply.
heck, yeah.
But I do believe that essay,
Yeah, that should,
they are going to be doing the research on this community, and they are going to come to terms and the understanding of the facts of our unique weather, lights, that type of stuff
okay.
already.
So maybe instead of that here, when we get our final applicants and we're going to develop questions to ask
Mhm.
them, that's going to be one of my absolute questions. And it's going to be really specific then. I mean, we get down to so much daylight and there's no restaurants and there's no theater and there's swimming pools closed and and you're too old to ski. And you don't know anyone here.
Who are you hiring?
I know, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. But you know what I'm saying. I mean, I've had multiple members of the public suggest that we really quiz people on that. And my experience, and I've spoken with Councilmember Barnwell about, my experience growing up here, and I guess maybe it was the vice mayor, but so many of my really good teachers growing up didn't make it more than a year or so, and it was the spouse perhaps or themselves, and they couldn't handle it, and people should know what they're getting into. I mean, I retired, spend the rest of my life here, but, not everybody. So, okay, I'll withdraw that as a thing here, but then that's going to be one of my questions to put on the list of questions. Is that okay? Okay. Councilmember Fish.
Madam Mayor, maybe this will help. Strong leadership skills for staff and community, remain neutral in political issues and political advocacy, fair with staff and public, and consistent interaction with the public, and an understanding of the unique weather and seasons in Seward, Alaska.
Oh, that would be okay, huh? I mean, that's not as graphic. Okay. We can do that in the interview because it's very important. Okay, is there anything else right now that you can think of there?
Do you want
Madam Clerk.
in anything related to infrastructure, seeking funding? Some of those things were used in the past.
Well, we've got a whole bunch of hands getting
Yeah.
ready to, Vice Mayor.
I was just
let's
gonna say, I
get-
thought that was part of that supplement,
Right.
that was gonna have our legislative priorities and
they'll
everything
see all
listed, and
that.
I would think
That's what
that.
I was thinking.
We have to do it now, though.
Councilmember Barnwell, what was your question? Sorry. That's okay.
Don't we have to do this now, though, because?
Well, we already have our legislative priorities. That
Okay.
exists.
Gotcha.
And I believe we could come up with a real quick list of the projects we have going. Is that, or Madam City Manager, you could just state what we're
Yeah,
thinking.
so if we make, can we come up with, it, not right this minute, but
Yeah.
come up with it, and so it's more complete, so
Oh,
that
yeah.
we can, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the same page with what we're doing, and,
Yeah.
yeah, but we want that included, they would see that, that's another thing that you'll have to put in, right? Okay. Councilmember Demas.
Okay, so I'm just confirming that we're adding our legislative priorities, that city managers will come up with a handful of your biggest projects that you're dealing with right now. If someone had to take over today, what would they be dealing with? And everything that we have told HR, you're just gonna put together and put it out, because we're not getting anything back at another meeting.
Right, I believe so, and we can trust, so far as, this is fantastic, I feel, what they've come up with already, and we're just putting the, kind of the finish, I think. Councilmember Demas, you had...
Just one more follow-up on the advertising. Did we want to explore the other online?
Oh, we were going
advertising?
back, see, that's the thing.
I
Thank
mean,
you for
I
giving me
I
all this.
looked it up quickly. It
Oh.
was $2.99 for ZipRecruiter for a month. I don't know. I'm just saying,
Okay.
do we want to give her a cap if there is something that we want? Or do we just want to do the IC?
Well, personally, well, I don't know, let's find out what people think. Councilmember,
I think a $500 advertising cap for the first 30 days. Because if we're gonna be spending, in my opinion, if we're gonna spend money on advertising, then we might as well hire HR.gov, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And follow-up question would be, I know that we don't get a chance as a group to see the application. Is HR gonna share it with administration before it goes out? I mean, is there gonna be a second set of eyes that scans it? Or will HR make the final decision and it just goes out? That's just a question.
So, for the applications that I received?
No,
I'm
this
sorry,
was-
I'm,
the packet that goes
Mhm.
out, I believe he's speaking to, like
Right.
the whole thing and,
oh, understand, yes, I can have administration take another look at it for me and make sure everything is
That'd be okay?
good.
Yes, yeah, I just figure, I mean, it's always great to have an extra set of
Oh, yeah,
eyes, take a look
absolutely.
at something as,
I've got my
especially
phone.
a document as important as this, so that was my request.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We were back at the limit on advertising. How does everyone feel, or should we just pay for any advertising? I mean, opinions.
I agree with Councilman Wells, a $500 cap.
A cap? Okay, so if an outfit wanted more than that, we just wouldn't put it on there. Councilmember Wells?
I was suggesting 500 in total for 30 days. That was my
Yeah.
suggestion. So pick
pick the one.
do some research on one of those, and if, you know, whether it's ZipRecruiter or Indeed or whatever, and you know, if they're 270, did you say 279 a month?
Is that 299, I think?
Yeah, so that's 300, so then you got that, and you got the newspaper.
Okay. Did you,
Or should we go to 6, sorry?
5? Did you have, okay. Does that answer that?
Yes, it does.
Phew, is there anything else? We need to get together more like this. I don't know the public realizes, well, I assume you do, but we can't talk in groups of 3, or more than 3, so it's hard to get everyone's opinion when you can only talk to up to 2 other council members, and this is good because you've got such a great group that, and we went through this. Okay, are we good? Anything else? I'm gonna move us along. Councilmember Barnwell.
I just want to check with the Assistant City Manager, because he's the one that's going to be here after Mr. Bowers leaves. Are we missing anything that you noticed, or do you have any suggestions?
No, I would just reiterate the discussion about the specifics, that I would share my thought on that, is that this community wants a good communicator, as you guys have all talked about. You want somebody who's gonna move the projects we have forward, and one of the best things that I think our current city manager has done is an amazing job in DC, as you guys all know, and an amazing job in Juneau, and that affects our ability to obtain external funding that gives us the ability to do these projects, so, yeah. That's something that we definitely need to continue to move forward with, and
And it seems we've put that in.
yeah,
Okay, are we
and
ready?
just
to-
incorporate that into the questions as much as you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would suggest to everyone, start thinking of questions now, so it's not the last minute. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna move us, Councilmember Finch, sorry.
So what did we determine on the input from council?
Do you want to read back what we have, either Madam Clerk or Tammy?
Yours might be easier to read than mine.
Either one.
Honestly, I took a lot of notes, but they're not in any manner that could be
Okay.
But we got yours.
literate, so
I think it'll be
maybe
fine.
just
Yeah.
allow her to work it up and,
Right.
yeah.
I think I'm good with that. Okay, anything else? Okay, then I'm going to move it to citizens' comments. We seem to have a citizen. Would you like to comment?
No, I'm fine, thank you, I came a little late, I just wanted to observe.
Thank you for being here. Any other citizens wanting to comment? Okay, then I'm bringing it back to council and administration comments and responses to the non-citizen comments. So administration, what you got?
I don't think I have anything further. I just really want to say I appreciate how all of you came together on this and this dialogue and continued conversations and really identifying what you want, because that'll be, as you know, super important in this process. So, good job.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start with Councilmember Finch. We're going to go the opposite direction.
I've always enjoyed the interviewing process on jobs like this. It's interesting, some of the answers you get. I've had some doozy ones thrown at me, so it'll be interesting to see.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnwell.
This is a fun collaborative process here. I hope if there's anybody out there watching in the bigger world, I think it'd be a really exciting job. I think there's tons of interesting things going on here. We've got a few years here that are going to be really, there's a bright future in Seward right now, so I encourage people that have to apply. It'll be fun.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun.
Not much to say. I think the process is going to work itself through, and we're going to know when we get the applications, regardless of what we have put in here on what we're looking for. I think we all are kind of looking for the same thing in a city manager. So, and anybody out there that is an assistant city manager or a department head somewhere, or whatever their jobs may be in a municipal government setting, they're going to do their research, and they're going to look at everything, no matter what we've told them in here, and we're going to know whether they did or not when we get their applications and talk to them. So I'm looking forward to it. been on the council a couple different times and I've never been been in the process of hiring a city manager, so it should be a good time.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wells.
Well, I have never participated in this process either, so I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity. And I'm extremely grateful to Jeanette for everything that she has done. I'm sorry that we are going through this process, but I thank you very much for helping us find the closest, most amazing city manager that you can. And so we appreciate you. I appreciate you putting your effort in on us with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Demas.
I want to thank administration, the clerk, and HR, Tammy. Thank you for just coming together and working together and helping us explore this process for the first time together as a group. And hopefully it'll be successful. And thank you so much to Jeanette for everything you've done. And I'm excited to be a part of this process as well. So I think we'll know the person when we see them. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Osenka.
Yeah, I would just, pretty much what everyone else already said. Tammy, HR department, thank you. I think you put together a pretty good application process here. Administration and our city clerk, thank you guys. I think this is I'm looking forward to seeing this process through.
Okay, thank you. And I've been through it a few times, and so I really appreciate the dialogue tonight. And I'm just going to mention that I had the opportunity to have 20 or so fourth graders here with me for most of the other day, and they were from Seward Elementary, and they were doing resolutions and things up here, and they were amazing, and I'm hoping that they will watch the YouTube of this and see how we did this, because we were telling them how kind of we do it too, and they'll see how people work together to come up with answers. And thank you to HR and Tammy for everything that you've done so far, and this is going really well, and thank you to administration, of course. And with that, I will adjourn this special meeting at 6:48.